This video has been dubbed in English using AI-generated translation. As this is an experimental process, some parts of the translation may not be perfect. Thank you for your understanding.
Hello guys, my name is Fabio Brunello. I am a motion designer and 3D artist. In this small series of tutorials, I wanted to introduce the software Cinema 4D, and in particular focus on Octane Render. The first of these concerns the composite material of Octane, and we will go into detail to recreate this text. It's a very simple material to make because my idea was to start with something simple and then gradually move on to more complex things. To create it, I used all the free resources from the internet, which I will show you now, and you will also find the link in the description. So let's start with the roughness texture that I used from cgbookcase.com. You will find the free PBR texture section, and all the textures are definitely of good quality and go up to 4K resolution. Specifically, I used the roughness texture that you find here of this scratchy painted metal 01. You can download it freely from here, while regarding the surface imperfections of the plane that you have seen, I used this texture that you can find on DeviantArt, also downloadable for free. Just like the HDR that I used for the lighting, which is part of this package, also downloadable for free. Finally, the mask that I used to create the writing is made with this font, which is also free, but obviously only for personal use, downloadable from dafont.com. Okay, let's get to it. So we will see how to set up this document. Let's create a new file, okay? And I will save it. Immediately in my projects, overwriting. You will obviously start from an empty file. Okay, we can reset Octane to start again from this obviously empty scene. So let's immediately set the various options of Octane. Let's start with the settings. I use path tracing for photorealistic images. Obviously, the samples are exaggerated. 100 will be enough for our project. I would say 10 out of 10 should be enough for the diffuse and the specular. The rest can remain as it is. Now let's create a camera, an Octane camera, and in the tag on camera imager, we activate camera imager and activate the denoiser, the spectral denoiser. Okay. Furthermore, regarding the response, I usually rely on the linear profile, which requires shifting the gamma from 1 to 2. Otherwise, the images would be too dark. For the rest, I would say we are good. Maybe we set the hot pixel to 0.5, which is better. Okay, let's create the HDR environment, always in Octane. And let's insert here on texture the HDR downloaded from DeviantArt in that package. And here we visualize it. At this point, we just need to create a plane. A square is fine since our texture is square. And then let's create a composite material in Octane. okay, which we can call black gold. Okay, we can already apply the material to the plane so that we can see the result in real time in the Octane Live viewer. So let me show you the texture I created in Photoshop with the writing. It's a simple black file of 2048 by 2048 pixels with the writing in white in the center that will serve as a Luma mask, let's say. Now we will see how to use it. So let's go to edit our material. Just select it and go to the node editor. So this material allows us to create within the editor multiple materials that are mixed together through masks or filters. So material 1, add material, that is add. And so we have created the first material. Let's go back here. And let's already add the second one. Okay, let's remember that we will have a black material for the background and a pseudo-golden material, let's say for the text. On both materials, I would work instead of on the glossy type, on the universal one, which is the most widespread, even in the case that you in the future find ready-made textures and PBR materials online. You will see that the subdivision and nomenclature of the textures perfectly match with that of the universal material. There's the albedo, the specular, etc. Okay, in this regard, let's activate the metallic on both. Since our materials are both metallic, specifically on metallic, we set the specular map to 1. Sorry. So let's start with the first material, the albedo. The albedo would then be the color. The first material is black, so we can move to black, or maybe keep perhaps 5% of white. It becomes a very dark gray, almost black, while for the gold, our golden material, we can move to 40 degrees and 60%. Then clearly, each of you can make your own adjustments. This is a basic setting that I have put. Let's start by inserting the first texture, the one for the roughness. We will use the roughness 1 for both the golden material and the black one, so we can link it to both materials. A single texture will be shared between the two materials. Inside the texture node, we fill it with the material downloaded from the first site I showed you. Okay, and let's immediately add another image texture, which is the one for the imperfections that we will use on the plane in the bump. We go here and select scratch texture. Okay, so by default being white on black, instead of becoming concave, the scratches, as you can see here, come convex. See? So you need to invert the texture simply by clicking on the node and then clicking invert. Okay, at this point, you see that instead they have become concave. Perfect. Having done this, we can go back to the gold and the sheen layer. Increase the sheen to 1. This makes the contours, at the moment they receive the light, they are much brighter. Okay, let's start to see the result obtained at this moment. So you see we have this surface. So maybe to create a bit more movement, we could, on the texture of the scratches and imperfections. slightly rotate the origin. And so we add a UV transform. Okay, and on the Z rotation, maybe we set it to 45 degrees. So we have a bit more movement. And finally now, as you will see, nothing is visible yet. We can go ahead and insert our mask created in Photoshop, the black one with 2048 pixels. So let's link it to mask between the two materials and insert our PSD mask. It's very convenient to use the PSD directly, because once this rig is created, let's call it that, of this material, then it will be enough to go to Photoshop to edit the text to be able to change it on the fly. And let's go see the result. Here we go. Our text starts to appear. What we still want to achieve, though, is a slight border in relief on the edges of the text, as if there were a textured surface, right? Almost like a brush stroke, I would say. So we can still go and add a displacement node. You see there is the displacement option. It is activated directly from this tab. Add displacement. You see it creates a new node, which we link to the same material made in Photoshop. We just need to set a few things. Meanwhile, the default thickness is set to 10. But as you will see, it is unmanageable. In reality, this is a very small detail, so 0.15 centimeters is more than enough. And the level of detail, since our texture are a 2048, it will be the same. We are still going to add a filter, Gaussian A1. This makes the edges round off a bit. And here, as you can see, these slightly elevated contours have been created. So, what we can do now still, to improve the scene a bit in general, is to rotate the HDR a bit to better illuminate the parts and highlight, let's say, a golden part. So we go to the X rotation of the HDR, and you see that by using a part more luminous, the effect changes immediately and is more pleasant. So what I would still like to do is to lighten these surface scratches a bit, which are definitely exaggerated like this, and then maybe create some smudges, almost like brush strokes, on the surface of the writing. Now let's see how to do it. Let's go back to our material, the node editor, and let's see a bit how to solve it. So, regarding the scratches, it will be enough to act on the power and set a value. Low like 0.25, 0.25. I would say it's already better. I would say it's better. Let's try to lower it further. Here. Okay, I would say that 15 is a good compromise. Okay? While to create a bit of movement on the surface of the text, we could use the same texture that we used for the roughness and then connect it to the bump. Okay. Which by itself, here you see it has immediately created these ripples, which right now I would say are a bit exaggerated. So we can add a color correction node between the texture and the bump. It is automatically linked correctly, and we are going to adjust the brightness, lowering it to 0.5. Okay. There. I would say we are good. And this could be a good compromise, a good final result. Thank you for watching the tutorial, and see you next time.